Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And if you want to hear new stories before they reach YouTube, check out my Patreon. Members get early access, full text scripts, and clean audio versions. Now let's get started. The first dead man I worked that morning sat up with my palm on his chest. That is the cleanest way I can say it. No music in the background. No warning from dispatch. No special unit waiting outside. I had one knee on a marble hotel floor, one glove torn at the thumb, and my partner Devlin Cross had an oxygen bag squeezed in both hands. We had called him pulseless. We had the monitor showing a straight line. We had done what we were trained to do, and every move we made put us closer to his mouth. 6 minutes before that, he was an aggressive patient. 4 minutes before that, he was probably drugs. 2 minutes before that, he was a fever with a bite injury involved, which meant paperwork, police, maybe a difficult transport. Then he stopped breathing, and the room changed into a normal cardiac arrest. That was our first mistake. We let the call become normal. My shift started at 5:58 in the morning at County Station 3, on the east side of the city, behind the tire shop and the discount pharmacy with the broken sign. I was checking Ambulance 7 with a clipboard and a pen that barely wrote. The bay doors were shut. The concrete floor had damp tire marks from the night crew. Someone had left a microwave burrito open in the kitchen, and the coffee had been sitting there long enough to taste burnt through the smell alone. Devlin came around the back of the ambulance carrying 2 oxygen masks and a plastic bag of tubing. He wore his uniform cleaner than mine. He always did. He looked at the cabinet, counted the collars, tugged the stretcher lock, then tapped the main oxygen bottle. "Main bottle full," he said. "Spare bottle about 3/4. "Write it." He marked the sheet and looked inside the supply drawer. "We're low on gloves again. We were low yesterday. We were low last week." I took the box out and shook it. Maybe a dozen pairs, all large. No mediums. No eye shields except 2 cracked ones with foam peeling off. One disposable gown folded into a square. Half a roll of tape. A trauma bag that had been packed by somebody who believed gauze could solve administrative failure. Devlin saw my face and reached for the radio microphone inside the cab. "Don't bother," I said. "They'll tell us to restock at Mercy East." He put the microphone back. Station 3 was down 1 crew that morning. 1 medic had called out sick. Another had been sent to court for a crash report. Engine 11 was in the next bay, with 2 firefighters cleaning dried vomit from their boots after a nightclub call. The whole place had that early morning mood where everyone talks low, not out of respect, out of where. The bay speaker clicked on. Medic 7, respond priority 2 to the Whitcomb Grand Hotel. 104 North Bramley Street, aggressive patient in lobby, male, unknown age, security on scene, possible narcotics, police requested, timeout 6:06. Devlin looked at me over the cab door. Hotel lobby before breakfast. Good start. I pulled the call slip from the printer. Maybe conference drugs. The speaker clicked again. Medic 7, update from caller. Patient hot to touch, not answering questions. Bleeding from mouth, tried to bite hotel staff, police not yet on scene. Devlin stopped with 1 boot on the running board. Tried to bite. Put the eye shields up front. He grabbed them without another word. We rolled out under low siren until we cleared the ramp. The city was not awake yet, not fully. Delivery trucks idled behind restaurants. A bakery worker hosed flour paste off the sidewalk. A woman in blue scrubs waited at the bus stop, with a lunch bag hooked over one wrist. 2 police cars cut past us westbound, with no lights, moving too fast for patrol driving. The radio filled the cab in pieces. Chest pain at the train depot. Fall injury at Windsor Tower. Welfare check on an elderly woman no one had heard from since yesterday. Then dispatch sent Medic 12 to a grocery store for a combative fever patient refusing transport. Devlin kept both hands on the wheel. Another fever. People get fevers. People don't usually bite the front desk. I opened my glove pouch and laid 2 pairs on the dash, We go in clean. No hero stuff. If he spits, we step back. Copy. The Whitcomb Grand had brass doors, polished floors, and a front desk clerk who looked relieved enough to do something stupid. He waved us in with both hands, before we even had the stretcher down. A luggage cart was tipped near the elevators. Broken glass lay under a planter. The lobby lights were too bright for that hour, and the whole room smelled of lemon cleaner, hot fabric, and fresh blood. A hotel security guard was kneeling on a man in a grey suit. Another guard had the man's wrist wrapped in a towel. The towel was wet near the hand. The patient was face down, shoes scraping the floor in short, hard pushes. He was not yelling. He was not begging. He was working his jaw against the towel and trying to turn toward the closest arm. The bellman stood behind the counter with blood on his shirt and both hands clamped to the side of his neck. A manager in a navy jacket kept saying police were on the way. She said it 3 times before I asked her anything. I lowered the stretcher. What happened? The guard on the patient's back looked up. He had sweat on his collar and a split above one eyebrow. He came out of the elevator and went at Carlos. No words. Bit his tie, bit his hand, then bit him here. He tapped his own neck with 2 fingers. We pulled him off. Drugs? Alcohol? Room number? The manager checked a paper in her hand, 714. Arthur Dinn. He called down around 4 for ice. A guest heard banging after that. I crouched near Arthur's head, keeping my forearm away from his mouth. Arthur, my name is Victor, County Emergency Medical Services. Can you tell me what you took? He did not blink. His eyes were open too wide and not following movement. His skin looked grey under the lobby lights. Sweat had dried white around his collar. The muscles in his face kept moving, not with pain, not with panic. More mechanical than anything I had seen from a drunk or a head injury. Devlin stepped in at the legs. We need police. The manager held up her phone. They said 5 minutes. When? 10 minutes ago. Arthur jerked hard enough to shift both guards. One guard cursed and pressed his knee down harder. Carlos made a small sound behind the counter. Blood leaked between his fingers. I pointed at him. You, sit down. Keep pressure on that wound. Do not touch your mouth or eyes. Carlos sat because his legs gave out, not because he listened. I looked at Devlin. Soft restraints first. Chemical if he keeps fighting. Mask if he spits. Devlin opened the drug pouch. Police better show. Arthur stopped moving. The lobby went quiet, so fast I heard the elevator music again. The guard stayed frozen on top of him. His fingers opened. His face settled into the towel. I waited 1 second. Then another, giving him the chance to start bucking again. Nothing. Arthur? I touched his shoulder. Arthur, can you hear me? No answer. I felt for a carotid pulse without putting my face near his. His skin was burning hot through the glove. I could not find a pulse. Devlin moved before I asked. Monitor down, pads out, oxygen bag open. We need him supine, I said. The guards backed off too slowly. We rolled Arthur onto his back, with the towel over his lower face. His lips were dark. His chest was not moving. His eyes stayed open. That part bothered Carlos. He started asking if the man was gone. Back behind the desk, I told him. I'm bleeding. I see it. Sit down and keep pressure. Devlin cut the shirt while I placed pads. The shears snagged on a hotel key card in Arthur's pocket. It skidded under the stretcher. The monitor came on with its small flat beep and a straight line crossing the screen. No pulse, I said, starting compressions. Devlin sealed the mask over Arthur's face and squeezed oxygen into him. I started cardiopulmonary resuscitation. 30 compressions. Pause. 2 breaths. 30 more. The body was too hot under my hands. The jaw moved with each push, and the towel shifted down from his mouth. Fix the towel, I said. Devlin reached with one hand. That was the moment Arthur opened his mouth wide and bit through the oxygen mask. Plastic cracked. Devlin jerked back. The bag slipped from his hand. I stopped compressions because Arthur's head lifted off the floor. Not rolled, not coughed. Lifted. He came up with the pad still stuck to his chest and the monitor wires pulling tight. One guard swore under his breath. Arthur turned toward the sound. I shoved my forearm across his collarbone and pushed him back down. Restraints now. Devlin grabbed the stretcher straps. Arthur snapped at my sleeve. His teeth caught fabric and missed skin. The two security guards helped because I told them exactly where to put their hands. Elbows, knees, shoulder, no hands near his mouth. The manager screamed once, then cut herself off when Arthur turned toward her. "Quiet," I snapped. "Everybody quiet." That was the first thing we learned and did not understand yet. Sound mattered. Not all sound. Not a monitor beep. Not the air conditioning. Human voices, footsteps, a metal crash. Anything sharp enough to give him direction. Police came in while we were trying to strap him to the stretcher. Two officers, both young, both annoyed before they saw the floor. One reached for Arthur's arm. "Don't put your hand there," I said. The officer pulled back. "What is this?" "Medical call with violent patient. Possible toxic exposure. Possible contagious fever. We need him restrained for transport." Arthur thrashed against the straps. The stretcher rocked. Devlin tightened the chest strap until it cut into the wet suit jacket. The officer took out handcuffs. "Not behind the back," I told him. "You'll roll him onto his airway. He's biting people." "I know. Cuff the stretcher frame if you need to. Keep his head away from everyone." The officer looked at Arthur's face and changed his mind about arguing. He cuffed one wrist to the side rail. His partner called for another unit and stepped away from Carlos, who was now pale and shaking behind the counter. I got a dressing on Carlos's neck and a yellow triage tag from my bag. Delayed, not fine. He could talk. He could follow commands. The bite was ugly but not spurting. He kept asking if he needed stitches. He did not ask if he had been exposed to anything. None of us did. Devlin climbed into the back with Arthur. I took the captain's chair. One officer rode behind us in a cruiser. The hotel manager pressed both hands to the glass doors when we left. Carlos sat on the lobby floor under the front desk lights with a towel at his neck and no mask on his face. On the way to Mercy East, Arthur did not fight the straps at random. He pulled toward Devlin when Devlin spoke. He pulled toward me when I told him to stop. When we stayed quiet, he tested the same strap over and over with short, hard pulls. His chest moved, but not in a clean breathing pattern. The monitor showed a rhythm I could not use. Too much movement, too much artifact. His pulse came and went under my fingers, or I was feeling my own pressure against his neck. I did not trust any of it. Devlin keyed the radio. Mercy East, Medic 7 inbound with adult male, severe agitation, fever, post-cardiac arrest presentation, violent biting behavior, restrained. One additional bite exposure coming by police from same scene. The hospital answered after a delay. Medic 7, repeat post-arrest. Patient was pulseless on scene. Straight line on monitor. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation started. Patient resumed movement during resuscitation and remains combative. The line stayed open. I heard somebody in the emergency department say, "What does that mean?" A doctor came on. Older voice. Short temper hidden under control. Medic 7, keep restraints in place. No airway manipulation unless safe. Use Bay 2. Security will meet you. Devlin looked at me over Arthur's legs. I said, "Document exactly." He wrote with the pen shaking from the road, not from fear. The road was rough near the hospital. The stretcher brackets rattled. Arthur turned his head toward the sound and bit the air. Mercy East already had ambulances lined at the entrance, 3 units ahead of us. One fire engine blocking half the lane. A nurse stood outside in a surgical mask, with no eye shield, holding a clipboard. She had a blood smear on one wrist above the glove line. Hospital security opened our back doors and stepped away when Arthur lunged against the straps. The nurse came closer anyway. "Don't," I said. She stopped. "Room 2. Bite risk. Fever." He arrested and came back combative. She looked at the chart, not at Arthur. Room 2. Inside, the emergency department had that busy sound I knew, but the pitch was off. Too many people talking at once. Too many family members standing. A man in pajama pants was coughing into his bare hand. A woman held a towel around her forearm, with blood soaking through. 2 police officers had a handcuffed man seated in the hallway. The man kept leaning toward passing staff with his mouth open. "Why is he in the hall?" Devlin asked. A nurse pushing a medication cart said, "No beds." We transferred Arthur with 6 people and too many exposed wrists. One security guard got his sleeve caught under Arthur's shoulder and nearly put his hand over the patient's mouth to free it. I slapped his forearm away harder than I meant to. "Hands clear." He stared at me. "I'm helping." "Then keep your hands clear." The doctor came in while Devlin gave report. Dr. Hester. I had seen him on bad nights before. He was careful, blunt, and never impressed by drama. "Start over," he said. I did. Hotel lobby. Biting. Fever collapse. No pulse. Straight line. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Movement resumed without normal recovery signs. Continued aggression towards sound. Bite exposure to staff. He listened until the last sentence. Then he looked past me into the hall. "How many bite patients today?" he asked the charge nurse. She answered too fast. 5 since 4 in the morning. "Animal?" "No. People." That was the first time the word people sat in the room long enough for everyone to hear it. We should have stayed there. We should have been pulled out of service, stripped, washed, assessed, logged, and held until someone from County Health told us what to do. Instead, a supervisor with a phone pressed to his ear waved us toward the ambulance bay. "Clear when restocked," he said. "We need gloves," Devlin told him. "Everyone needs gloves." We had direct contact. So did half the room. He turned away before Devlin could answer. We wiped the stretcher with the last disinfectant cloths we had. I checked my gloved tear. Skin looked intact. No blood. I changed gloves anyway. Devlin threw the cracked oxygen mask into biohazard, then stood there looking at the bag. He bit the mask, he said. "I saw." He was dead on the monitor. "I saw." "What do we write?" "We write what happened." The radio called us before we finished. Medic 7, respond priority 1 to Orchard Vale Senior Living, 800 Larch Road. Multiple sick persons, 1 unresponsive. Staff requesting immediate assistance. Engine 11 en route. Police unavailable. Timeout 7:22. Devlin looked toward the hospital doors. "We're not restocked." I opened the glove drawer. 8 pairs left. "Dispatch, Medic 7, I said. "Be advised we are low on personal protective equipment and have not completed decontamination from previous bite exposure call." Janice, our dispatcher, answered after a pause. Her voice was tight already. "Medic 7, copy low protective equipment. No other unit available. Proceed with caution." Devlin shut the cabinet. "Proceed with caution. Great." We drove to Orchard Vale, with the windows cracked even though the air was cold. Not for infection control. The back of the ambulance smelled of sweat, plastic, and the bitten oxygen mask. Devlin kept glancing at his sleeve where Arthur's teeth had pulled fabric. No blood. No torn skin. He checked it at every red light. Orchard Vale was a 1-story nursing facility with a flag out front and a sign promising memory care, assisted living, and dignity. The front door was propped open with a wheelchair. A resident in socks stood in the landscaping with a blanket over one shoulder. No one was watching him. Engine 11 was not there yet. Inside, the hallway lights were on, but half the rooms were dark. The desk phone rang unanswered. A television played morning news in the day room with the sound too loud. An aide rushed up to us wearing 1 glove. Only 1. "Room 12, she said. Mr. Fisher stopped breathing. 3 more in dining. Nurse left to get help. Left the building? She said she was calling from her car. Devlin opened his mouth, closed it, then took the monitor. "What symptoms?" I asked. "Fever, confusion, biting." Ms. Renner bit Stanley during breakfast. Then Mr. Fisher fell out of bed. "I cannot get anyone on the phone." "Where are the bitten staff?" She pointed without looking. "Laundry room." Stanley locked himself in there. We went to room 12 first because unresponsive still meant first priority. Mr. Fisher lay halfway off the bed, with one arm twisted in the rail. He was 80 or close to it, thin under a striped blanket, mouth open, eyes fixed. The room smelled of urine, lotion and heat. His skin was hot, No pulse, no breathing. Devlin looked at me and did not say Arthur's name. I put one hand up for quiet. The aide was talking behind us. I told her to stop. The room settled. The television kept going down the hall. Mr. Fisher's jaw moved once. The aide made a sound and backed into the wall. Devlin reached for the door and shut it halfway. "Vic, I see it." Mr. Fisher's head turned toward the aide. His body moved with too much force for a frail man with no pulse. Not strong at first, determined. He dragged one shoulder against the sheet and tried to roll toward the voice. "Out," I told the aide. She did not move. "Out now." Devlin pulled her by the sleeve. She stumbled into the hall. I used the bed rail and blanket to keep Mr. Fisher on the mattress without putting my hands near his face. His dentures clicked. His fingers caught the blanket and pulled. We had no protocol for a dead patient trying to bite. We had protocols for cardiac arrest, violent psychiatric patient, seizure, hypoxia, head injury, infection control, triage, refusal, death confirmation. None of them fit clean. That was the problem. People kept choosing the closest normal box. Engine 11 arrived while I was still in the room. Captain Barrow came in with 2 firefighters and stopped dead at the doorway. "Why is he moving?" "No pulse," I said. Barrow took one step back. He was a good captain. That step probably saved one of his people. "What do you need?" "Clear the hall. Keep residents away from sound. Find bitten staff. No bare hands. No face contact. If someone collapses and starts biting after no pulse, do not start cardiopulmonary resuscitation until we know what we are dealing with." He stared at me because that sentence broke every normal reflex in the job. Then he turned and started giving orders. The dining room had 3 residents in wheelchairs and 1 man on the floor. A breakfast tray had flipped under a table. Oatmeal and coffee spread across the tile. Miss Renner, a small woman with white hair pinned flat, sat in a chair with blood around her mouth and both hands folded in her lap. She looked calm until the television volume rose for a weather alert. Then she stood so fast the chair slid backward and hit the wall. Everyone turned toward the crash. "Quiet," Barrow ordered. Miss Renner came toward the sound with her mouth open. A firefighter grabbed the back of her sweater. She twisted and almost got his wrist. He let go and shoved a dining chair between them. Devlin pulled triage tags from our bag. Red for immediate, yellow for delayed, green for walking wounded, black for dead or beyond help. We had used those tags for bus crashes, fires, pileups, and training drills where volunteers pretended to be wounded. I had never used one on a nursing home hallway while deciding which febrile resident could wait behind a closed door. Stanley, the bitten cook, was in the laundry room with a towel wrapped around his forearm. He would not open the door until I put my badge against the window and told him my name twice. His bite was deep. He had a fever already. He said Ms. Renner had bitten him 20 minutes earlier. 20 minutes was too fast for a normal infection and too slow for a simple reflex. "Can I drive myself?" he asked. "No, I'm not getting in that ambulance with them." "I'm not putting you with them." "Then where?" I did not have an answer that worked. Dispatch had no units. Mercy East was on diversion. St. Anne's was taking trauma only. County General was asking for police at the ambulance entrance. Janice kept repeating instructions that changed every few minutes because someone above her kept changing them. Medic 7. County Health advises possible severe viral encephalitis cluster. Use standard precautions and transport unstable patients to nearest emergency department. Devlin answered before I could stop him. "Standard precautions are not enough. Patients are biting through equipment." No answer. Engine 11 requested law enforcement. No units. The nursing facility administrator arrived in heels and a raincoat over pajamas. She asked who authorized us to lock residents in rooms. Barrow told her he did. She said he did not have that authority. One of her residents hit the inside of a door with both fists and started making a wet grinding sound through the wood. The administrator stopped talking. We transported Stanley and one aide with a bite to the forearm. We left Mr. Fisher secured in his room, with the door blocked by a dresser. That sentence looks unforgivable on paper. In the room, with 6 residents needing help and no police, it was the only decision that kept the hallway usable. Before we left, the one-gloved aide grabbed my sleeve. Should I call families? I looked at the desk phone, the residents, the television, the door shaking under Mr. Fisher's hands. Yes, I said. Tell them not to come here. She stared at me. Use those words. The ambulance bay at Mercy East was blocked when we got back. We diverted to St. Anne's. Then St. Anne's refused us at the ramp because they were locked down. A security guard stood behind the glass and crossed both arms over his chest. He shouted through the door that they had no isolation rooms. Stanley started vomiting into an emesis bag in the back. The aide cried quietly and kept asking if her bite looked worse. Devlin stayed with them while I argued with a charge nurse by radio. County order says transport unstable patients to nearest emergency department, I said. The nurse answered, County is not standing in my hallway. Then give us a destination. Not here. Janice broke in. Medic 7, divert to North College Field House. Temporary triage site being opened by City Emergency Management. Fire unit staging there. Devlin looked at me from the back. A gym? I keyed the radio. Dispatch. Confirm you want bite exposure patients with fever transported to a school gym? A long pause. Medic 7, stand by. Stanley slammed one hand against the cabinet. The aide screamed his name. Devlin told her to move away. Stanley's eyes were open and unfocused. His bite dressing had soaked through. His jaw started that same working motion I had seen in the hotel. Vic, Devlin said. I pulled into the curb before the answer came. We stopped beside a closed bank, with rain starting on the windshield. Devlin had Stanley's stretcher strapped tight across the chest and both legs. The aide was pressed against the rear doors, yellow tag swinging from her wrist. Talk to me, I said from the side door. Stanley turned toward my voice. No. The aide reached for him. I caught her wrist. Do not touch him. He's scared. He is trying to bite you. He's Stanley. I know his name. That shut her down harder than yelling would have. We had to leave Stanley restrained in the back while we moved the aide to the passenger seat. Devlin rode in back with a cabinet door between his body and Stanley's face. We did not have enough straps for this. We used a cervical collar, 2 rolled towels, and tape across the stretcher rail to limit head movement. It was ugly. It was improvised. It worked for 9 minutes. North College Field House was already a bad idea when we arrived. School buses sat outside with city workers directing cars into the lot. A banner over the entrance advertised a spring basketball fundraiser. Parents stood near the doors with bags, strollers, and pets in carriers. Some wore masks. Most did not. A police officer had a bullhorn and kept telling people to remain calm, which made the line louder every time. Devlin stayed in the ambulance with Stanley. I went inside for instructions and found the gym floor covered in folding cots. Firefighters had set up a triage table near the concession stand. Red, yellow, and green tape marked lanes on the floor. It looked organized until I watched a coughing man with a bleeding hand walk from the yellow section into green because he wanted to sit with his wife. A city emergency manager in a vest asked me what we had. 2 bite exposures, 1 febrile and restrained, 1 bitten aide, alert, fever starting. We need isolation, not a cot. He checked a clipboard. Bite patients go to yellow unless unstable. Your yellow section is open to the room. That's the plan we were given. Who gave it? He did not answer. A whistle blew across the gym. Every agitated patient in that room turned. I saw it all at once. A man tied to a cot sat up. A woman in a wheelchair snapped her head toward the sound. 2 patients behind a curtain started pulling at the sheet wall. A firefighter near the doors shouted at the person with the whistle. That made it worse. Stop yelling, I said. No one heard me. The whistle blew again. A coach or volunteer, I never learned which, was trying to get people to move into lines. He thought volume would create order. The cot patient broke 1 wrist restraint. not from huge strength. The restraint was cheap and tied badly. He rolled off the cot, landed on his knees, and crawled toward the whistle. People started running. The sound of running feet brought more movement from the yellow section. I grabbed the emergency manager by his vest. Turn off the whistle. Quiet groups. Move healthy people out through the side doors. No bullhorn inside. He looked offended for half a second. Then he saw the cot patient bite the rubber end of a chair leg and drag it across the floor toward the coach. We never brought Stanley inside. That probably saved people. Devlin saw the crowd surge through the front glass and lock the ambulance doors. The bitten aide in our passenger seat kept asking if she could go home. Her name was Lacey Pell. She had 2 daughters at a middle school across town. She had been on shift since 11 the night before. She had called her supervisor 6 times and gotten voicemail. She had 1 shoe on right and 1 shoe mashed down at the heel. You need medical care, I told her. No one is giving medical care. She was not wrong. That was the worst part. A lot of people making bad choices that day were not stupid. They were looking at the same broken system I was, and choosing the least impossible option. Dispatch sent us next to a crash at Jory Avenue and 9th. Devlin stared at the radio. We have 2 patients already. Janice answered before we transmitted. Medic 7, closest unit. Crash involves school van, possible entrapment, multiple injuries. Engine 11 unavailable. Police requesting medical. I looked back at Stanley. His straps had held, but the stretcher frame had shifted half an inch under repeated pulling. The aide sat in the front, sweating through her shirt, eyes closed, yellow tag on her wrist. We cannot take more patients. Janice's voice dropped. No one can. In, so we went. Jory and 9th had 3 vehicles damaged across 2 lanes. A white school van sat crooked against a traffic signal. A sedan had gone up onto the curb. A delivery truck had rear-ended both. Steam rose from the sedan hood. No fire. Police were on scene. 4 officers and 1 sergeant, all trying to do 4 jobs at once. The van driver was outside, holding his face. 2 teenage passengers stood on the sidewalk with cuts from glass. A third was trapped by a bent seat frame. Inside the sedan, a woman in business clothes was folded against the steering wheel, not moving. A man in the passenger seat was awake and trying to climb over her toward the broken windshield with his mouth open. The sergeant met us before we had the bags out. Passenger attacked driver before impact. Driver went into traffic. Passenger is high or sick. We need him out. No hands near his face, I said. The sergeant nodded too fast. Got it. He did not have it. None of them did. One officer reached through the passenger window to grab the man's jacket. The man turned and bit the officer's glove at the knuckles. The officer pulled back, glove torn, skin showing white at first, then red. Back up, I shouted. The officer stared at his hand. He got me. Wash it now. Water bottle, saline, anything. Do not touch your face. He looked toward the sergeant for permission. That delay kept happening all day. People waited for rank while the thing moved faster than procedure. The trapped teenager in the van started crying that her leg hurt. Devlin went to her with the trauma bag. I went to the sedan driver. She had a pulse. Weak. Airway noisy. Head wound. Red tag. The passenger kept pulling against the seatbelt, trying to reach the sound of my voice. We could not transport the driver with Stanley in the back. We could not leave Stanley loose. We could not abandon the driver. We did not have another ambulance. Every option failed in a different direction. A fire unit arrived from another district with 2 firefighters and no captain. They looked young enough to still read every label on every piece of gear before using it. I gave orders I had no authority to give. You take the van. Red tag leg entrapment after extrication. Yellow tags for walking wounded. Keep them away from bite exposure. Sergeant, your bitten officer needs a yellow tag in isolation. Do not let him ride with healthy people. The sergeant pushed back. He's my officer. Then keep him alive by not pretending it is nothing. That got through. He put the officer in the back seat of a cruiser alone and shut the door. The sedan passenger stopped fighting and slumped against the belt. I did not move toward him right away. The sergeant noticed. Is he out? Maybe. Maybe. If he has no pulse and then starts moving again, do not put your hands near his mouth. The sergeant looked at the man, then at me. That happened? Twice today. The businesswoman driver died before a transport unit arrived. I had my hands on the doorframe and a dressing pressed to her head when her pulse faded. We did not start compressions. I made that call. I made it in front of police, firefighters, bystanders, 2 teenagers from the van, and Devlin, who looked at me once and then looked away. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation would have put my face and hands inside that car with the passenger, the driver's blood, broken glass, and no safe way to control either body. The monitor showed no rhythm we could shock. We had no space, no protection, no transport. I tagged her black and wrote the time. Her phone kept ringing in the cup holder. I remember that more clearly than I want to. Not the ringtone, not the model, not the name on the screen, the repeated sound. The passenger turned toward it after he started moving again. We backed away and let police close the road. At 11:34, County declared a mass casualty incident. At 11:40, Mercy East ended ambulance offload except for immediate resuscitation. At 11:45, St. Anne's locked the ambulance entrance. At noon, dispatch stopped using normal call language. No more sick person. No more behavioral. Calls became bite fever, violent fever, down subject moving, and then unconfirmed infectious incident. We had less than half a tank of fuel. We had 4 pairs of gloves. Stanley had torn one strap halfway through. Lacey Pell was quieter now. Too quiet. Devlin kept checking her from the corner of his eye. She answered questions, but slower each time. Name, date, location, pain, nausea. Could she feel her fingers? She got all of it right until location. She said Orchard Vale, while we were parked under a highway sign on Jory. We need to offload her, Devlin said. We need somewhere to offload her. She's turning. Don't say turning. What word do you want? I had none. County General finally accepted bite exposure patients if police escorted the ambulance. We had no escort. Police were tied up at the crash. The gym, the hospital, and calls we never saw. Janice told us to proceed anyway and use the north ramp. The north ramp was blocked by private cars when we arrived. People had driven patients straight to the emergency department and left vehicles wherever the engine died or the driver gave up. A man carried an elderly woman through the rain while yelling for a doctor. A security guard stood on top of a concrete planter telling people the department was closed to walk-ins. Nobody believed him. Devlin and I moved Lacey inside first. Stanley stayed restrained in the ambulance with the rear doors locked. I hated that. I did it anyway. Inside County General, the hallway had become a triage floor. Colored tags on wrists, tape lanes. Staff writing with markers on skin when tags ran out. A nurse had written, bitten left hand 640 on a man's forearm. Another patient had fever after bite, across the tape on his chest. A doctor moved from cot to cot with no gown, no face shield, one glove, and blood on his sleeve. I grabbed his elbow. Where do you want a bitten aide with fever and confusion? He looked at Lacey, then at the room behind him, yellow if awake, red if airway, black if no pulse and aggressive after death. He said it too easily. How many? I asked. He did not answer. He had already moved to the next cot. A hospital administrator stood near the nurse's station, saying County Health was sending guidance. The charge nurse threw a chart onto the counter and told him guidance did not restrain patients. A security guard walked by with a bite on his forearm, wrapped in paper towels. He was still working. We got Lacey onto a cot. She grabbed my sleeve before I could leave. My daughters, she said. Give me the number. She told me once. I wrote it on the back of a glove box because I had no paper left. I promised to pass it to the desk. I did pass it. I do not know if anyone called. When we got back to the ambulance, Stanley was no longer in the stretcher position. The rear doors were closed. The windows were fogged. One strap had snapped. He had rolled partly off the mattress, held by the chest belt, and one ankle strap. His head was wedged against the cabinet under the airway drawer. The metal latch had a tooth mark in it. He turned toward us when Devlin swore. "We can't move him again," Devlin said. "No." "Then what?" "We ask for a containment unit." He laughed once, without humor. "A what?" I keyed the radio. "Dispatch. Medic 7 at County General North Ramp. We have one restrained bite fever patient in ambulance. Aggressive. Unsafe to move with current equipment. Request supervisor and law enforcement." Janice answered. "Medic 7. All supervisors committed. Law enforcement delayed. Dispatch. This unit cannot safely return to service with patient in rear compartment." Another pause. "Medic 7. Stand by." We stood outside the ambulance in the rain for 7 minutes, while Stanley hit the cabinet with his forehead and bit at anything that rattled. People walked past us carrying relatives, begging for help. A man asked if we could take his wife to another hospital. Devlin said no. The man called him a coward. Devlin took it. He did not look away from the rear doors. A hospital maintenance worker finally came out with a rolling linen bin and 2 security guards, not a supervisor, not police. They opened the doors, used the bin as a barrier, and helped us transfer Stanley to a locked storage room off the ramp. He was no longer our patient in any practical sense, but I wrote his name on tape and put it on the door because leaving him as unknown male felt worse. The maintenance worker read the tape. Stanley Baird. Cook at Orchard Vale. He got family. Probably. The worker nodded once. Everybody does. That was one of the few decent things anyone said that day. We cleaned the rear compartment with hospital wipes that ran out halfway through. We threw away a sheet, a towel roll, the broken strap, and a suction catheter we had never used, but could no longer trust. Devlin found 2 spare gloves in his coat pocket and put them in the drawer without making a joke. At 2:05 in the afternoon, we had 10 minutes with no patient. Rain tapped the windshield. The cab heater blew lukewarm air that smelled of damp uniform cloth. Devlin opened a protein bar, took 1 bite, then wrapped it back up. I drank half a bottle of water and used the rest to wash a line of dried blood from the edge of my glove. Before I remembered, I was about to throw the glove away. The radio no longer sounded organized. Voices cut across voices. Bad instructions went out, got corrected, then came back worse. Units advised, Mercy East, closed to ambulance traffic. Engine 6, requesting police for crowd control. Police Command requesting medical for officer bite exposure at South Precinct. County Health advising, avoid contact with saliva and blood. Repeat, avoid contact with saliva and blood. Devlin looked at me. They're late. Yep, by about 8 hours. Yep. The next call was South Precinct. A police station should have felt safer. It did not. The parking lot was full of cruisers, civilian cars, and 1 city bus with no driver. People stood at the doors shouting through the glass. Officers inside had locked the public entrance. We went through the side sally port, where a sergeant with a red bite on his cheek waved us in. He said, "We've got prisoners sick in holding. 1 officer down, 1 civilian down. Watch your hands." That last line told me he had learned something. Holding had 6 cells. 4 were occupied. 1 man paced and slammed his shoulder into the bars. 1 woman sat on the bench, with her head tilted toward the hallway sounds. 1 cell had 2 people in it, which should not have happened. Younger officer kept saying they had no other space. The down officer was in the booking room, with another officer doing compressions on him. "Stop," I said. The officer looked up. He has no pulse. "I know. Move back." "I'm doing compressions." "Move back." He did not. Devlin grabbed his shoulder and pulled him away right when the down officer's jaw opened. Teeth closed on empty air where the other officer's wrist had been. The room froze. The down officer's name patch read Bell. He was maybe 30, maybe less. He had a bite under 1 ear and blood dried along his collar. His hands came up in short grabs, not coordinated enough to stand, plenty coordinated enough to catch a wrist. The younger officer backed into a desk and knocked a phone onto the floor. The ringing started a second later. Bell turned toward it and dragged himself half off the chair. "Turn the ringer off," I said. No one moved. I stepped over, yanked the cord from the base, and the room settled enough to think. South Precinct had done exactly what any police station would do that morning. They brought violent people in. They cuffed them. They put them in holding. They handled bites as assault injuries. They let bitten officers keep working because staffing was already short. They did not know death was not the end of movement. When the first prisoner stopped breathing, someone opened the cell. Then the calls went out. A lieutenant wanted us to transport Officer Bell. "No," I said. "He's an officer. He has no pulse and is actively biting. You don't leave him on my floor. I'm not putting him in my ambulance with one strap and 2 gloves." The lieutenant's face changed. Not rage first, disbelief. He was used to arguing people into compliance. This was not that day anymore. Devlin spoke before the lieutenant could. "You have riot shields?" The lieutenant looked at him. "Shields, helmets, catch poles, anything that keeps hands away from mouths. Animal control has catch poles. Then call animal control." No one laughed. We treated the living first. A bitten dispatcher named Rhoda with a torn forearm. A prisoner with a head injury from hitting the cell wall. A civilian who had collapsed in the lobby before the doors were locked. We tagged, dressed, and sorted. Police hated the tags. Red meant he goes first. Yellow meant she waits. Green meant walk outside if able. Black meant do not spend scarce minutes there. It felt cold until the next person screamed for help. Then it became the only way to keep moving. Rhoda refused transport. "I'm staying on radios," she said. "You have a bite and fever. I know. Then you know you need monitoring." She pointed at the dispatch room. "There is no one else to answer police calls." The lieutenant told her to go. She ignored him. I put a yellow tag on her wrist. She let me. Then she sat back down at the console with her bandaged arm on a towel and kept dispatching units until her words started coming out broken and mixed. An officer finally took over. I do not know what happened to her after that. By late afternoon, the city had 3 separate commands giving orders. Fire wanted all ambulances to stage and wait for police. Police wanted all ambulances moving with them. County Health wanted bite patients isolated, but no one had isolation space. Hospitals wanted diversion. Dispatch wanted clear units. Every order made sense from one desk and failed in the street. We got fuel at the municipal yard by arguing with a public works supervisor who wanted a written request. Devlin held up his radio so the man could hear Janice calling for medical at a bridge evacuation point. The supervisor looked at the ambulance, looked at the line of police cars behind us waiting for fuel, and unlocked the pump. We got 13 gallons before the pump died. Not empty. The pump stopped. Power flickered. The numbers on the display went blank. The supervisor hit the side of the pump twice and said the backup generator was supposed to start. It did not. 13 gallons, Devlin said. Better than none. Not by much. Our final assignment came at 6:12 in the evening. Medic 7, respond to East Bank Bridge checkpoint. Multiple stalled vehicles, heat exposure, bite injuries, 1 pediatric respiratory distress. Police requesting ambulance evacuation. Approach from west. Do not approach from east. Repeat, do not approach from east. The sun was low behind cloud cover. Rain had stopped, but the pavement held water in the cracks. Smoke rose from somewhere downtown, not a big column, several small ones in different places. Traffic lights worked at some intersections and hung dark at others. People had started driving on sidewalks. We passed a bus with all its doors open and nobody inside. We passed a pharmacy with the front glass broken and a line of people waiting outside anyway, each one hoping there was still a rule that would make the next person behave. East Bank Bridge had become a funnel. Police had blocked the far lanes with buses and city trucks. Cars filled the approach, 3 and 4 across. Some had doors open, some had luggage tied to roofs. People moved between vehicles with bottles, bags, pets, and blankets. A few sat on the curb, with colored triage tape on their wrists, probably from the gym or another checkpoint. The infected were not in one clean group. That would have been easier. They were scattered through the traffic, where people had turned in cars, in the backs of vans, near open doors, under the bridge rail, behind the bus line. Each burst of shouting pulled them in a new direction. Each slammed car door pulled more. A police officer waved us through with both arms. His face shield was scratched. His baton was gone. He had a strip of duct tape around one glove at the wrist. "Respiratory patient this way," he said. We found her in the back of a minivan. A girl named June Farrow, 8 years old. Gray sweatshirt, inhaler empty. Lips tight, shoulders working hard. Her grandmother was with her, one hand on June's back, and the other holding a grocery bag full of pill bottles. June had asthma. They had been stuck on the bridge for 2 hours. The grandmother had walked 3 lanes asking for help and been told to wait for ambulance transport. We had oxygen, we had a nebulizer, we had medication. For once, we had the right thing. Devlin set her up in the back while I checked the grandmother. No bite, no fever. Exhausted, scared, angry in a clean, useful way. "Can you get us off the bridge?" she asked. "I'm going to try." "Do not say try to her." I looked at June. She was watching me with too much focus for a child fighting for air. I said, "We're moving you to a safer place." The grandmother nodded once. She accepted that version. A police sergeant at the checkpoint wanted us to take 2 more patients. One man with a bite to the calf. One woman with chest pain. Both needed care. Both would fill the back. The bitten man was sweating and angry, refusing to sit anywhere except with his wife. The chest pain woman could talk, but her skin had gone pale around the mouth. I triaged them under a bridge sign while people yelled from cars. Red for June because airway came first. Yellow for chest pain until she worsened. Yellow isolation for the bite, away from the ambulance. The bitten man called me useless. His wife begged me. The sergeant told me he needed the lane cleared. "I have 1 ambulance," I said. "I have 200 cars. Then stop adding patients to my back doors." The sergeant stared at me, then turned and shouted for officers to move the yellow tags behind the bus. An infected woman in a torn cardigan turned toward his voice and slipped between 2 cars. Devlin saw her first. "Vic." I grabbed the sergeant's shoulder and pulled him backward. The infected woman hit the side of the ambulance with both hands and left bloody streaks on the white paint. June made a small sound from inside. Devlin shut the rear doors from within. A line of sound traveled through the cars. People yelling, doors slamming, a dog barking from somewhere under a blanket. The infected near the bridge rail turned and moved toward the ambulance, not fast enough to outrun a healthy person, fast enough to close distance, while people argued about where to go. "Move now," Devlin said from the back over the intercom. I got in the driver's seat. The grandmother climbed into the passenger side. She held the grocery bag to her chest and asked if June was breathing better. "Devlin," I called. He answered from the back. "Medicine running, oxygen good. Go." I tried to go. The ambulance moved 6 feet and stopped. A pickup had cut across the lane ahead of us and stalled. The driver was gone. A sedan was pressed to our left. The bridge barrier sat on our right. Behind us, police were trying to close a gap with a bus that would not start. I hit the horn once. Every infected within earshot turned toward us. I took my hand off the horn. The grandmother looked at me. She did not say anything. Good. There was nothing useful to say. Devlin came through the back door into the cab space. "Fuel?" I checked the gauge. Low. Lower than low. The needle sat near empty and dropped when the engine idled. 13 gallons had not carried us far after hours of running lights, heat, and stops. "We're close," I said. "How close?" "Too close." He looked out the windshield. The infected woman in the cardigan was still at the side panel, dragging one hand along the seam. Another man moved between cars toward the rear doors. He had a green triage ribbon on his wrist and blood down his chin. June coughed in the back. The nebulizer hissed. The grandmother turned toward the sound. Devlin said, "Keep her looking at you." The grandmother leaned through the pass-through. June, eyes on me, baby. Count my fingers. Do not make her talk, Devlin said. Just look. The engine sputtered at 6:59. It caught again. Then it sputtered at 7:02 and did not catch. The dashboard light stayed on for a few seconds. The siren box blinked. The heater fan slowed. Outside, the bridge noise kept building. Inside, the ambulance became too quiet around the oxygen hiss. Devlin tried the radio. Dispatch, Medic 7. We are disabled on East Bank Bridge West approach with 1 pediatrics respiratory patient on oxygen, 1 adult guardian, 2 crew. Fuel exhausted. Infected subjects around unit. Request extraction. Static answered first. Then Janice came on. Her voice had thinned out over the day. Medic 7. Copy disabled East Bank West approach. No extraction units available at this time. Hold position if secure. Devlin closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them. Copy. Holding. I took the small recorder from my shirt pocket. I had used it for notes when writing reports after bad calls, medication times, patient names. Mileage. Things dispatch missed. It was not for speeches. I turned it on and set it near the radio speaker. My name is Victor Rusk. County Emergency Medical Services, Medic 7. Date is Monday, May 18th. Time is 7:06 in the evening. This is a field report from East Bank Bridge. I am recording because written reporting is no longer possible from this unit. Devlin looked at me, but did not stop me. First call was 6:06 this morning. Whitcomb Grand Hotel. Adult male, Arthur Din, severe fever and biting behavior. Patient became pulseless during restraint and showed a straight line on monitor. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation started. Patient resumed movement without normal recovery signs and attempted to bite providers. Bite exposure to hotel staff. Patient transported to Mercy East. The infected outside hit the rear doors. Once, then again. Not enough to open them. Enough to remind all of us where we were. I kept my voice low. Second cluster, Orchard Vale Senior Living. Multiple fever patients. At least 1 pulseless resident resumed movement and attempted to bite after no pulse. Bite exposure to staff. Nursing shortage, no law enforcement available, no isolation capacity. June's grandmother whispered, "Stay with me, June." I waited until the medication hiss steadied again. North College Fieldhouse used as triage site. Bite fever patients placed near general population. Sound exposure caused multiple aggressive patients to orient toward whistle and shouted commands. Recommend no bullhorns, whistles, or crowd shouting near symptomatic patients. Devlin checked the oxygen bottle. He held up 2 fingers, 200 pounds left, maybe less. Not long. He did not say it aloud in front of June. Jory Avenue crash. Patient attack inside moving vehicle likely caused collision. Police officer bitten during extraction attempt. Standard restraint methods failed when hands were placed near mouth. Recommend barriers, shields, and no direct hand contact near face. A police radio outside squawked from an abandoned cruiser. The infected near our hood turned away from us and started toward that sound. It bought us a little space. Not safety. Space. County General and Mercy East overwhelmed. Hospital diversion orders conflicted with field needs. Staff lacked eye protection, gowns, and secure isolation. Bite patients and non-bite patients crossed paths in hallways. Several bitten staff continued working due to staffing failure. Devlin leaned close. Say reanimation delay. I nodded. Observed delay between apparent death and renewed movement varied. Hotel patient resumed movement during resuscitation within minutes. Nursing home resident began movement shortly after pulseless assessment. Crash patient resumed movement after several minutes. Bite to symptom time varied from under 1 hour to several hours based on field observation. Fever, confusion, reduced speech, bite aggression, and sound orientation appeared before collapse in multiple cases. The recorder light stayed red. The radio stayed alive. That mattered more than hope. I did not think about hope. I checked what we had. A working radio. Oxygen in a bottle. 1 young patient getting medicine in the back. Devlin counting supplies without talking. the grandmother keeping both hands steady on June's shoulder. I continued. South Precinct brought symptomatic violent persons into holding cells under normal arrest procedure. Multiple exposures followed. Do not treat this as standard intoxication, psychiatric crisis, or assault behavior. Do not place bitten but functional staff back on duty without isolation. Do not perform mouth-level airway work or compressions on pulseless bite fever patients unless the scene is secure and bite protection is available. Something heavy struck the side panel. The ambulance rocked. The grandmother flinched but kept quiet. Devlin moved to the rear and braced the inner door with his shoulder. He did not need an order. I looked through the windshield. The bridge lights had come on, but not all of them. Cars sat across the lanes with brake lights glowing until batteries died. People moved in the gaps. Some living, some not. The difference was becoming harder to tell from a distance, which meant every decision took longer. I brought the recorder closer. If anyone receives this, the first 18 hours were not lost because people refused to help spread it. Standard help, hands-on care, open waiting rooms, shared hallways, police restraint, family transport, crowded triage. We moved exposed people through the city before we understood what exposure meant. I stopped there because that sounded too clean, too ready for a report. I hated it. So I added the part I would have said to another medic, the part that mattered in the street. Do not trust a quiet patient who was biting 10 minutes ago. Do not trust a dead patient with a fever until the body is secured. Do not let anyone stand close to the mouth. Do not yell unless you want every one of them looking at you. Keep families apart from bite patients, even when they hate you for it. Use the tags. Save who you can move. Do not waste the last pair of gloves proving you care. Devlin looked back from the rear door. Oxygen's dropping. I turned off the recorder for a moment and climbed into the back. June was sitting upright with the mask over her face. Her eyes followed Devlin's hand when he checked the bottle. The grandmother had stopped asking questions. She knew enough now. The regulator needle sat low. We had a portable bottle in the side cabinet, half full if the morning check had been honest. I opened the cabinet and found it wedged behind the trauma bag. Devlin helped switch the line without wasting more than a breath of oxygen. June kept the mask on. Good patient. Better than most adults that day. Outside, someone called for help from the next lane. A man's voice. Close. Then another voice told him to shut up. Then a car alarm started farther back on the bridge. Every infected near us turned away from the ambulance and moved toward the alarm. Devlin watched through the rear window. That gives us a minute. For what? The grandmother asked. No one answered fast. I looked at the cab, the blocked lane, the dead engine, the police bus 20 yards ahead, the side walkway beyond the barrier. The walkway ran along the bridge, narrow but passable. At the far end, I could see police lights through rain haze and exhaust. Maybe 200 yards, maybe more. With June, oxygen, one grandmother, one medic bag, and infected scattered through cars. Staying meant the oxygen would run out. Moving meant noise, exposure, and no ambulance walls. I hated both options. One was slow failure. The other had a chance to fail fast. Chance matters when the gauge is almost empty. We move when the alarm is still drawing them, I said. The grandmother held the grocery bag tighter. Can she walk? No. Devlin reached for the soft carry tarp we used for tight stairwells. We carry her. I put the recorder back on. Update. Medic 7 preparing to leave disabled unit on foot with one pediatric respiratory patient, one adult guardian, 2 crew. Oxygen limited. Destination West checkpoint, beyond bridge. Janice answered through the radio before I could turn it off. Medic 7, say again. You are leaving unit? I picked up the microphone. Affirmative. Fuel exhausted. Oxygen limited. Patient cannot remain. There was static, then her voice again. Medic 7, I do not have anyone to send to you. I know. Keep your radio open if able. Copy. She did not say good luck. Dispatchers know better. Luck is not a plan. She said, West checkpoint, here's you. They will watch for your light. Devlin pulled the small flashlight from the airway drawer and checked it. It worked. We wrapped June in the carry tarp with the oxygen bottle between Devlin's feet and mine. The grandmother took the medication bag because I needed my hands. I gave her one instruction. If I say stop, you stop. If I say quiet, no words. If you fall, hold the bag and stay down until I come back. She nodded. June lifted one hand from under the tarp and touched the edge of her mask. I thought she wanted it off. She pointed at my recorder. I leaned closer. She whispered through the mask, "Are you telling them?" "Yes." "Tell them Grandma waited." Her grandmother turned her face away and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. I put the recorder near my collar and left it running. Devlin opened the rear door slowly, 1 inch first, then wider. The car alarm still screamed behind us. The infected near our lane had moved toward it, bumping against cars, slipping on wet pavement, reaching for whatever sound came next. We stepped down without dropping the tarp. My boots hit glass. I stopped. Devlin stopped. The grandmother stopped. No one spoke. A man under a rain jacket crawled out from between two cars and reached toward us. Living, green tag on his wrist. No visible bite. He saw the girl in the tarp. "Take me," he whispered. I shook my head. He grabbed my pant leg. Devlin shifted the tarp weight but did not let go. I bent enough to peel the man's fingers off one at a time. "I can't." He cursed me under his breath. Quietly. He kept his voice low. That helped us more than he knew. We moved along the ambulance side, through the gap between our bumper and the stalled pickup. The infected woman in the cardigan was gone. A man with blood on his chin stood near the bridge rail, facing the car alarm. We passed behind him with less than 6 feet between us. June's oxygen hissed under the tarp. I kept waiting for the bottle to knock metal against metal. It did not. At the barrier, Devlin climbed first, then took the front of the tarp, while I lifted from the rear. The grandmother passed the med bag over and then climbed with one hand on the rail. She moved better than I expected. Fear did not make her graceful. It made her obedient to the next instruction. The walkway was slick. Cars pressed close on the other side of the barrier. People watched us through windows. Some begged through cracked glass. Some filmed us with phones. One woman put both hands together and mouthed, "Please." I kept walking. That is the part people will judge if this recording survives. They should. I judged it while doing it. I passed living people because the patient in my hands had the airway problem I could treat. If I stopped for every person with a need, I would lose her, and then lose them anyway. Halfway across the approach, the car alarm stopped. The bridge did not go quiet. It changed direction. Feet scraped pavement behind us. A door slammed ahead. Someone shouted from the cars. Several infected turned toward the new sound, and one of them turned toward the walkway. He wore a suit jacket with one sleeve missing. He hit the barrier once, failed to climb, and followed parallel to us through traffic. Devlin said, "Lo, keep moving." June's grandmother started praying under her breath. I told her quiet. She stopped mid-word. The infected man found a gap where a car had mounted the curb. He came through onto the walkway, 20 yards behind us, not running, not slow enough. We could not run with June. We could not set her down. Devlin looked ahead and saw the same thing I did. A police cruiser angled across the walkway near the checkpoint, driver door open, light bar still flashing. Beyond it, officers behind a bus line waved flashlights. One of them shouted, "This way." 3 infected turned toward him. "Stop shouting," I said, too low for him to hear. The infected behind us closed to 15 yards. I unclipped the radio from my belt and tossed it over the barrier into the traffic lane behind him. It hit the pavement, and Janice's voice came through at full volume. "Medic 7, status check." The infected turned toward the radio. Devlin did not ask if I had meant to lose it. He kept carrying. We reached the cruiser. An officer behind the bus line understood finally and stopped yelling. He pointed instead. 2 firefighters came out with a backboard and helped take June over the last barrier. The grandmother followed. Devlin climbed after her. then turned for me. The radio kept talking behind us until a tire rolled over it or a foot crushed it. Janice's voice cut off in the middle of our unit number. At the west checkpoint, they had floodlights, buses, and not enough people. A firefighter took June's oxygen. Another checked the grandmother. A police officer asked me where my ambulance was. I pointed back at the bridge.
Out of fuel,
I said. He looked past me and did not ask again. I realized the recorder was still running at my collar. I unclipped it and held it close. My hands were dirty. One glove had torn at the palm. I had no clean pair left. Final update from Medic 7, I said. Unit abandoned on East Bank Bridge after fuel exhaustion. Pediatric patient transferred to West Checkpoint alive. Adult guardian alive. Partner Devlin Cross alive. Radio lost during movement. If this report is recovered, do not build the next response around courage. Build it around barriers, fuel, gloves, quiet movement, honest triage, and the knowledge that standard care can spread this if the scene is not controlled. Devlin came back from the bus line. He had blood on one sleeve that was not his. He looked at the recorder, then at me. "You done?" he asked. I looked toward June. She was sitting against a firefighter's coat, with the mask still on. Her grandmother had one hand on the oxygen bottle and kept it close against her leg. "No," I said. I pressed record again. The first dead man sat up at the Whitcomb Grand because we treated him as a patient we understood. We did not understand him. That is where my report starts. Not at the bridge. Not when the hospitals closed. Not when police lost the precinct. It starts on the floor with my hands on his chest and Devlin holding oxygen to his face. We were trying to save him. That was how it moved through us first. I stopped the recorder, put it in the front pocket of my vest, and followed Devlin toward the next row of cots. Someone was calling for a medic. We were still medics. Thanks for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment. It helps more people find these stories. New episodes appear first on Patreon, along with clean audio, full text versions, and more members' content. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Stay safe out there, survivors.